So I'm here with Mike Kanellis, and I know you guys watched that full interview that I did with him where I talked about how upon leaving WWE, he had experience in New Japan, Ring of Honor, and WWE. But the thing is, you had experience with all these companies like before 2010 as well. You were in a very rare group of people who got looks by all those people on TV. I remember Crime Time a couple times.
Oh boy,
how did that come about? And because I mean, that was like consecutive months you were doing spots with Crime Time, if I remember right, on Heat.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where if you're in the industry, you know kind of how WWE works. Where when they're in a different town, they bring in local talent to either have a match or be a security guard or be someone sitting at a bar or a restaurant or whatever. At that time, they were running Sunday Night Heat and they were pushing Crime Time. So they were looking for two guys to wrestle. And it just so happened that they booked, I think the first time was me and a guy named Danny Jacks.
Yep.
It was in Washington, D.C. I probably shouldn't tell this story, but I'm going to, because I think I've told it on Colt's podcast before, but it was a long time ago. Yeah. And I like John. Let me just preface. I like John Cena. So I did the match with Crime Time, and JTG used to do this thing with because he had a grill.
Yeah.
So that was like his calling card. So he had this idea where I make him look like a fool in the ring. And then he wanted me to make fun of him.
Yeah.
Sure. I didn't think anything of it. Okay. I did the thing. Oh. I did this. The match ended. We got to the back. Everyone was really nice. Thank you. And then I feel a tap on my shoulder. And I was like, oh, who's that? And I turn around and it's like, this is my first ever time at WWE ever. And I turn around and it's Cena. And he goes, did you do this out there? And I was like, what? And he's like, did you do, you can't see? And I went, no. I was like, I did that. He goes, don't ever do this again. And I was like, and I tried to explain. And then I was just like, you know what? Keep your mouth shut. Don't say anything. I looked at him and I went, yes, sir. And so after that, I went, well, I'm never working for this company ever again. Man. This is it. And like, you know, I never held a grudge or really. I just remember my heart dropping into my stomach and being like, oh my God, I'm done. I'm absolutely done. He's John Cena. He thinks I did this to make fun of him, which I'm sure he just saw a clip and just was like, are you kidding me? Like, I probably would have reacted the same way too. This guy's stealing my shit. Like, are you kidding me?
So Tyler Rex told me one time that he did like the reverse Death Valley Driver. Yeah. Like where they're laying the opposite direction, and Cena was like, you ain't doing that anymore.
Yeah, no, John's very protective of his stuff, and you have to be. I mean, you don't want people just coming in and stealing your shit, but like, I just remember being like, what am I going to do? I remember talking to my mom on the phone that night, and she's like, how'd it go? I went, John Cena yelled at me.
No. But you got brought back a few weeks later, right?
I did. Yeah, it did. It had no effect whatsoever.
And against Crime Time, did you say anything to Shad? Did you say, "Hey, buddy, listen, we can't run"?
No, but back. if he did bring it up, I was going to be like, absolutely not. And that's one thing I regret. I meant to tell, like I said, John's a great guy. Like I like him a lot, and he's always been good to me when I got there. So like that's one thing I regret. I wanted to tell him that story and be like, you got so mad at me, and I didn't do anything wrong, but I didn't. But yeah, it's that now that story, looking back at it, I thought my career was over. And now I think about it. I'm like, whatever. We all screw up.
So the following year you were in Ring of Honor and you did a dark match with Rhett Titus. You did a match with Daniel Puder of all people, if I remember right.
Yes, I did.
And then, I mean, it was a little brief. We could say that. What did you think of working with Daniel Puder? Because I'm pretty sure you worked two of those in the same day. I think the Rhett Titus and Puder things were same day.
The Rhett Titus was a dark match, and then the Puder was on the main show.
Yeah.
He's a nice dude. He was great. He actually kept apologizing. He was like, I wish I could let you get more in. And he's like, this is what they want. I was like, dude, you work here. I don't. I'm okay with it. It was so weird back then because Bobby Cruz, the ring announcer for Ring of Honor, has always been a close friend of mine. So he kept getting me these opportunities at Ring of Honor. And every time I did the opportunities, I would always go and talk to Gabe, who was booking at the time. And he was a big fan. Like, he's like, I want to bring you to Ring of Honor. But then he would always tell me the same thing. He'd always say, but I'm pretty sure WWE is going to sign you soon. So I don't want to bring you in if you're just going to leave and go there. And I was always like, but they're not signing me and they're not even talking to me. And I'm trying to get my name out there. Can you please give me a job? And it was always the same thing. It was always like, well, I think you're going to go to, and that's what a lot of people said in my career. They're like, well, you're custom built for WWE. You're custom built. My career's weird because you would think like, oh, you're custom built for WWE. Then when I got to Ring of Honor, I was like, I kind of like being here. Yeah. Then I went to New Japan and I was like, I really like being here. And then I went to WWE and then I was like, all I want to do is go back to Ring of Honor in New Japan because I had so much fun there. So it's just me and Maria always joke. Our careers have never gone at all the way we expected it. And this is just another thing. Yeah. If you had told me last year you were going to get released, I probably would have said, I believe that. If you told me it was in the middle of a damn pandemic, I would have been like, get the hell out of here. But
the odds.
Yeah, this is where we're at. And I'm like, all right, we'll figure it out now.
So I know that you did a couple more spots. Jason Blade, I think a few months later, you worked him. But then the next year, you got to look by TNA because you did a spot with Billy Gunn, who is now was Kip James back then, ahead of an Impact show. And the thing is, I don't think you did much with them after that. But how did that come about, and how was that?
So that was through Terry Taylor. I did a couple seminars with Terry Taylor, and I think he was head of talent relations at TNA at that point. And he, Bob Evans, who was my trainer and a friend of mine, was running Terry Taylor seminars. Brutal Bob. God love him, man. He's the best. I love that guy. And he was running seminars with Terry Taylor. And so I did the seminars, and eventually Terry pulled me aside and he's like, can you give me your info? And I'd love to have you come down for like a tryout match. And I was like, sure. And lo and behold, I think it was like a couple weeks later, I got he sent me flight info and stuff and flew me down. And he's like, you're going to work with Billy Gunn. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. He's like, you guys are going to be on first. It's going to be the dark match. Cool. And Billy was great. Like, he was talk about a guy. He found me before I could even find him. He came up to me. He's like, the first thing he said, have you ever worked in a 6-sided ring? And I was like, no. He's like, let's go out there. Let's figure it out, because if you go out there for the first time and you have never done it, he's like, you're going to be so off. So he was great about that. But the funny thing about that is we were supposed to be on first because everything started getting so crazy during the day.
We ended up after Styles and Angle, didn't you?
Yes.
We had to go reading about that.
Last. We went last. And not only, like you said, not only did we go last, but we went last after a 30-minute Iron Man match between AJ Styles and Kurt Angle. That is one of the greatest matches I've ever seen in my life.
To a draw. I remember that.
Yes.
Oh, my God.
But if you want to know the star power of Billy Gunn, that crowd still reacted for us because he was so over. So, but I just remember watching this match, and Billy Gunn kept looking at me. He's like, you ready, kid? You ready? And I was like, I don't know. I have no idea.
That thing's genetic too, because like I haven't seen a lot of his son's in-ring work, but I saw like his the way he moves and stuff, and I'm my God. Yeah. Like you can tell that he's a star. Just watched that all along.
He's a star. Yeah, he's going to be a huge star.
Oh, that's
those
amazing.
Two teaming together, they're the best.
So the 6-sided ring thing, like back when I did some training and stuff, somebody had one, and I went and bumped in it, and we did our bumps and rolls in a boxing ring. And it was harder than the boxing ring.
Yeah.
And when I hit the ropes
6-sided
the first time, when I hit the ropes the first time, I was like, I need to build my neck because they were so tight. I was like,
dude, it's like it propels you. Yeah. Like you touch it and it like shoots you out of a cannon.
It was nuts, but I appreciate you taking that stroll down memory lane with me. You had looks by all these people, and then like 07 WWE, 08. Ring of Honor, 09 Impact, and then 2010 is when you start to come into Ring of Honor, right?
Yeah, no. And so I had all these looks, and no one signed me, but I was just like, all right. Like I understood that wrestling was going to be a long journey. Mm-hmm. I always had it in my head that I'm in this for the long haul. I'm not in this to get rich and get famous. I love professional wrestling. Yeah. And that was actually, it's fun. that just made me think of it. That was a tough pill for me to swallow when I first got to Ring of Honor, because when I first got to Ring of Honor, I had this stigma about me that I was just like this body guy that wanted to get to WWE. And it drove me nuts because I have such a love for professional wrestling and such a passion for it that I used to be like, no, you don't understand. Like, I've been doing this for almost 9-10 years before I even got to Ring of Honor. I love this business. Like, I love being part of it. And so, like, I always knew I was going to be in it for the long haul. And I never knew where it was going to take me, but I was like, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So, you know, after all those companies told me no, or basically were like, well, maybe. It was always a maybe. No one ever said no. They were always like, we'll leave the door open, which I was like, that's just no. Tell me it's no. I understand how this works.
What was the best and worst feedback that you got from those 3 runs, TNA, Ring of Honor, WWE, early on, like from the dark matches and TV matches?
One of the worst feedbacks I've ever gotten in my entire life was from, do you know, I'm sure you do, Ty Bailey used to be talent relations at WWE.
Okay, yeah.
So he had seen me wrestle, and I had talked to him back, because once I got into the system at WWE, so Nova, Mike Bucci, was the one who kept getting me all those dark matches and tryouts because he wanted to get me signed. He was actively trying to get me signed. Once he lost his job, Ty Bailey came in. And when Ty Bailey took over, Nova said to him, here's a list of guys that I'm looking at that I think you should look at and possibly sign. I was on that list. I remember doing a show, and then Ty Bailey pulled me aside. And I'm trying to think of the way he worded it. He's like, you work good, you look different, but you're not unique enough. And I remember looking at him, I was like, well, what does that mean? He's like, I don't know, you're just not unique enough. I was like, but you just said I look different. Doesn't that make me unique? And he was like, not enough. And I remember being like, all right. He's like,
that was a bold thing for them to say, considering their hiring practices at the time, too, because they were hiring a lot of people who looked exactly the same. I mean, a couple years before that, Jim Ross went off because they were like, hey, everybody, cut your hair. And then he's like, well, they can't just grow it back, and now you're saying everybody looks the same.
And when he said that to me, I was the epitome of the guys that they were hiring.
Yeah.
You know, like I literally was. I was like 24 or 25 at the time. I was in good shape. I was my hair was cut. I was like the epitome of what they were looking for. So when he said that, I was like, well, what the hell? Because like I said, I only wanted to work for WWE until I got to Ring of Honor. Mm-hmm. It was always WWE or bust in my head. So it was always like, what do they want? What do they look? All right, I'll cater myself towards that. And then when I got to Ring of Honor, it was like, all right, all bets are off, because everyone at Ring of Honor was different.